Hello, I am Captain John Conrad, founder and CEO of the website gcaptain.com. Formerly a large ship captain, and now I'm bringing the news and information to the maritime community and those interested in ships. Today, the world is looking at the Suez Canal, where the ultra-large mega container ship Ever Giver ran aground yesterday. It's hard aground in the canal, and the traffic is starting to pile up. As this traffic grows and grows, these are critical supplies that need to get to COVID-infected areas and our second most important waterway or choke point. Choke points are those areas in the globe where all the traffic converges in one single section. The most important choke point is the Singapore Strait. The second most important choke point is arguably the Suez Canal, which is probably a little bit ahead of the Panama Canal. And things are looking grim. Right now, as we record this live video, it is high tide in the Suez, and there's some reports, we haven't got them confirmed, that there's a little bit of movement in the ship. So we hope that with the high tide and this movement, the tugboats can pull it out. But it could be a longer process. If we can't get this ship free tonight, the longer it takes, the worse the situation is. And it could be as bad as the CSL Indian Ocean, another mega container ship that ran aground in the Elbe River. That ship, it took 12 tugs 6 days to free it. So it really depends on how hard this is aground and a few other factors, which I am going to go over here. I'm also going to warn of the worst case catastrophic scenario which could play out and really put a damper on the whole world commodity and shipping and logistics market. So let's jump right to it. But first, I want to share our sponsor of this video is Black Sail AI, preventing black swans. Black Sail Maritime AI platform makes your operations safer, greener, and disruption-free. Augment your ships with our proven AI-powered bridge decision aid and semi-autonomous navigation. Black Sail is an MIT startup that is working to fix situations like this by integrating AI and maritime electronics to prevent. If you want to know how this incident happened and how Black Sail can prevent incidents like this, watch my previous video, How Did This Happen? In this video, we are talking about how we're going to unstick this container ship. That's not an official captain's term, but I like to use it anyway. All right, let's get right to it. Bring up, so many of you have seen the photos of the ship right here. And this is the tugboats that it has alongside. These are large tugboats. People have asked how big these tugboats are, strong and powerful. These are big tugboats. It's just the massive size of this ship that makes the tugboats look small. The Ever Giver, this evergreen container ship, is 1,300 feet, about 400 meters long. That's 200 feet longer than our biggest Nimitz size aircraft carrier. And it holds 20,000 TEUs. Those are 20-foot equivalent unit containers. So this is a massive ship. The largest ships in the world now carry 24,000 containers. So this one is right up there. It is a gigantic ship. And it ran hard aground. We talked about earlier how it happened. This ship was going at a higher than normal rate of speed, almost 13 knots. Usually they go at about 8 knots through the Suez Canal. It was trucking down the canal, and there are reports, some reports say that a wind gust hit it, and other reports say they might be a mechanical failure. We won't know until the official incident report comes out, but we do know that the bow kicked over and the bow ran aground right into the sand. And as that did, the momentum, ginormous amounts of momentum in these ships. I mean, these ships are heavy. the momentum sent the stern, and we think, we're not 100% sure, but we think that that stern ran aground as well. And here is the famous photo, which is blowing up in the memes across the line, of this bow kicked into the bank, into the sand. Now, this doesn't look so bad here. It looks like it's just in a little bit, but you have to see underneath this vessel is what is called the bulbous bow. Let me bring up a photo of a bulbous bow to show you. Here's a nice photo. This is an extension underneath. There are certain efficiencies to a larger ship, speed and reduction of emissions. So they build these bulbous bows. They're not as big as they used to be, but they protrude underneath the water to help push aside the water and for hydrodynamics. And this is what is fitted to the bow right underneath water. So that is stuck in there pretty well right now. And they're talking about possibly having to dig that out with excavators to get that bow free. You notice here that the anchors are up, so that's one less challenge, but at least a question, why didn't they use the anchor before running aground? Probably didn't have enough time to do so. So we also have news here that Boscalis said its subsidiary Smith Salvage has been hired to help with the operation and is sending 10 people to Egypt. Smith Salvage is one of the best salvage companies in the entire world. I've talked extensively with Smith North America, and I've gone to Holland to meet with Smith, and these guys are excellent salvage masters, among the best in the world. And right now they are flying teams of the best salvage experts to Egypt and to get on this. Meanwhile, what they're doing right now is they are downloading all of the ship schematics into advanced stability computers. So most critical thing with any salvage job is making sure that you have the right information. They have computer programs that can plot all the containers, approximate container weights, but really the ballast inside the tanks, how much do they weigh, and what are the implications of that weight. And these implication, guys, are huge. This is really going to determine if this is a simple salvage or if it becomes a cataclysmic disaster, right? For the world logistics. It's not a cataclysmic disaster as far as danger and loss of life. These incidents are always dangerous. There was a Marine salver lost in the Cougar Ace as a famous example because the ship heeled over so much that he slid down the top. So it's always dangerous. But Smith and Boscalis, they do the best PPE and equipment and really do things safely. So it's not a very dangerous from a life-saving, but it's very dangerous for all those supplies, the people in the hospital, the COVIDs who need the respirators and the masks and all the other supplies that are on board of this ship. So that's where I talk about danger. And of course, because Smith and Boscalis is not going to put anyone's lives in danger, the safer you are, the longer it takes to get this out. And the longer that you take to get this out, and the more it sits down in the sand, and the more difficult problems arise. And what's that most difficult problem that we are facing here? Well, let's first look at some more photos of this incident. Let me bring this up here. And you can see right here, see this red area. And let me try to zoom in here on this photo. Oh, that's too far. This red area right here, that is below the water line, right? So this area is supposed to be underneath the water. Obviously, it's out of the water now, probably because it ran hard aground and lifted the bow up out of the water. You can also tell from this photo that it has a little bit of a portless, so it is leaning a little bit to port. Now, these containers are very heavy, and they holding lots of stuff in these containers that are heavy. And, there is risk of this ship toppling over. So that's something that needs to be watched, particularly because, let me bring the photo back up. the first thing that they are doing right now to solve the problem in the short term, and they're hoping that this is the solution, is they are going to pump out of the ballast and rearrange the ballast and the fuel on board to lighten the ship as much as possible for high tide so that they can pull it off. So they're taking the ballast water inside. They put ballast water. Again, the ship would be top heavy if the weight was all up high. So to compensate for that, they load lots of water in the bottom of the ship, sink it down, and make it more stable. And now that they want to float it, they want to pump out that water to get the ship free. But there is a risk of it becoming top heavy and toppling over. That's why the computers and the naval architects have to do this slow and steady and really pay attention here. But there is even a bigger problem than it potentially tipping over at this point. And that particular problem, if we get back to the photo here, sorry, I have to find the right photo. Here we go. This photo here of the ship. So it is stuck on the bow section and it is stuck on the stern section. And these tugboats are going to try to pull it out when it gets to high tide. But you have a major problem called hogging and sagging. These ships aren't built as strong as they used to be. And the reason for that is computer-aided design has really improved the safety on board ships. They can now put these heavy weather scenarios, they can put rogue waves when they design the ship into computer designs, and they can design that ship to meet known parameters. When the waves get this high, we know that this is the max they could, and when they get this high, you need this much steel reinforcing the hull. But no one designs a ship to be grounded on the bow and the stern. If you usually ground, you ground towards the bow. You usually head into the thing. Not usually on the bow and the stern, right? But also back in the day, after World War II, when they designed a ship, they didn't have these computer designs. So they added twice as much steel as they needed just as that safety margin. Well, those safety margins have declined over the years with the computer-aided design. The steel is not as thick as it used to be because those margins have decreased because we can dial in the exact heavy weather scenarios that we want this structure to be sound for. But sometimes the computers don't have enough safety margin, which is what happened with the MOL Comfort. And I'm going to bring this photo up. This is another mega container ship, and this one cracked into in heavy weather. Now, there are a number of reasons, and we're still, there's debate over why this cracked in half. Some say, and the container companies want to kind of blame it on the shipping containers, that they did not weigh these containers properly. They did not know the weights, so there was too much heavy cargo on the bow and the stern, and because they didn't know the weights, they had light cargo in the middle, and that caused the crack. All right, and this is called hogging and sagging. So we got hogging, like happened in the MOL Comfort here. If you put heavy objects in the bow and the stern, again, right now you have a heavy object. You usually have an engine there and also the ballast. It's not just the containers, but the ballast. And you have very light conditions in the middle. You can have this hogging situation, and it puts this immense amount of structural stress right in the center of the vessel. Now, that's not a problem with the Evergreen. We have the opposite problem with the Evergiver, and that is a sagging condition. So right now we have the bow right here, or ground, and we have some section of the stern, we believe, we're not 100% sure, aground, and that cargo in the middle. This is like, what this is exactly like is trying, right now you got this cushion, right? The water's cushioning and it's evenly afloat, but as the tide goes out, if the stern and the bow are hard aground, It's like trying to lift an old car by the bumpers. Not a smart idea, right? You're gonna get that sagging, and then it could lead to cracks. Now, if we have cracks, that is the most dangerous situation. You can easily have an oil spill if the fuel tanks crack apart, like happened in the recent disaster in Mauritius, where that bulker was running up and the Wakashio was rubbing up against the rocks, and people thought that was doing the cracks, and it did, but it was really that uneven weight of being ground and that caused the cracking. So that is the worst case scenario. Obviously, you can have it topple over and crack and have the fuel out. So how are they going to solve this? Obviously, right now, they are going to try to, hopefully high tide, hopefully by the time you watch this, they have gotten this thing free with these tugs. If not, they're going to be very careful right now overnight as this water level falls. And remember, the bow and stern are stuck. They're going to do everything they can to prevent that sagging by moving the ballast outward and doing the computer algorithms and naval architecture and magic to try to keep that stress from cracking the hull. But it's a possibility. Next, what they have to do is they will probably bring a bunker barge alongside to get the fuel out. They want to get that fuel out before the cracks emerge and you have this major pollution event. Plus, getting the fuel out, fuel oil is very heavy, and hopefully they can suck that out, and that will help lighten the ship the next high tide. If it's light enough, they can pull it off. So first goes the ballast, second goes the fuel. If that doesn't work, they have to start pulling containers. So this is a photo of a container barge right here. This is basically what they want to do. They want to get a barge with a crane to start lifting the containers off of the ship and onto the barge. But there's a problem here. This barge was not built for a 9-stack mega ship, right? This crane is not tall enough. So where they are going to find a crane tall enough to get these heavily stacked containers, I mean, this is high up off the water, right? How are they going to reach this? I don't know. Get a crane large enough. But that is a factor. Some people ask if they can helicopter. Maybe if the containers, a few of them, because they're light enough, but a lot of these containers have heavy objects in it that will have to be craned off. And again, this is going to be like a Tetris puzzle for that salvage master and his naval architecture team. They're going to have to pre-program this Tetris thing and run through these scenarios on a computer before they ever start moving a container. Because if they get those weights wrong, what happens? Crack in the hull. And then you got major problems. So this is called lightering operation. Getting the cargo, the fuel, the ballast off to make it lighter, and then hopefully they can pull it in. If the ballast, that's what they're doing now, they're getting the ballast out, they're going to do the first pull, then they will probably, again, this is a guess, I haven't talked to the salvage team, they will probably get the fuel out, they'll try to pull it again, and then they'll start moving the containers out. And as they are doing this, they are going to get the massive salvage tugs into place. So there are salvage, they need bigger, stronger tugs in order to pull this ship in. And they've already talked about excavating the sand around the bow section. So heavy earth-moving equipment will probably be used. After they get the containers off, then they will be able to pull it and excavate enough of the thing. They will be able to pull it off. Once it's pulled off, the operation has not ended Now you have the Suez Canal and you have the Red Sea, and then you have the first lake. It is going to go to that first lake. It is going to anchor, and then a team of inspectors is going to come in, and they are going to analyze everything. It's classification society. They're going to send divers down. They are going to look for these cracks. They're also going to check all the machinery and all the equipment and try to find out what happened. Take samples of that bunker fuel. And there's a big question with the Wakashio and Mauritius. Is this low sulfur? We transitioned to more environmentally friendly fuel this year, and it's having effects. on some ships around the world. Some ships are getting plastic in the filters that are causing clogs that could be the cause of this incident. We don't know. They have to collect that forensic evidence. They have to inspect it. And then they will have to get with the port, the flag state, the port state, the classification society, and ultimately it is the Suez Canal that makes the final decision and decide, are they going to let it is it safe enough to move it from the lake through the final leg of the canal back into the Mediterranean Sea. Again, you don't want to make the situation worse. The last thing they want to do is get it free from this section into the northern section of the canal and then have the ship crack. That would be horrible situation. So they're going to stop it at that lake and they're going to do any temporary repairs they can. And then likely they're going to bring it to decide, are they going all the way to Germany and the UK where it was destined to, or are they going to find a container port closer in Greece or Italy to start offloading those containers and move those containers onto other ships? So that will happen next. And then whenever a major incident like this happens, after its discharge of all the containers, it will go into a dry dock. It will go into a massive berth with a gate. The gate will close. All the water will be taken out of that gate so men can get underneath that and really inspect and do heavy repairs to any of those cracks and machinery problems that they find. So that is the basic plan. Again, I don't have, I haven't talked to the salvage teams about this specifically, and the salvage teams work always with new information. But again, Smith's excellent. We know for a fact that they're sending their best salvage teams down there, and this is a high-level incident. Now, again, this comes at a critical time. If you look, we are in a container crisis right now. So the fallout is the big question, the economic fallout. As these ships, can't get through the Suez, what option do they have? They can wait for it to clear, or they can go around Africa, which takes additional weeks to complete that journey. Well, a lot of these are tankers coming from the Gulf. If those tankers are not able to get through, it could have an effect on the price of oil, other bulkers, commodities. We're already facing inflation. The rates of these containers, look at the stocks of some of these container ships. Look at the stock of Daniels Corp, DAC. Look at the stock of AP Moller and Maersk. They have been on a ride the last few months. They've been on a ride because we're in a massive container shortage right now. As the economy is opening up for COVID, there aren't enough containers. There aren't enough container ships. So this really could not have happened at a worst possible time. And it's going to have huge economic impact. If they solve this today, that's the best case scenario. But every day this goes on, the media attention and the political attention is going to grow exponentially as these backups happen and people start to realize that this has huge effects on the global economy. You're going to start to see presidents and prime ministers flying to Suez and putting all the attention and all the resources they can on this problem. And then unfortunately, like all these maritime incidents, the whole world's attention will be on it for a couple of days. We'll solve it, and then people will forget that ships are this important. Ships transport 90% of everything in your office, in your house, around you. They're really critical to our economy, and that's the worst case scenario, that we get a crack, we get pollution, we have to slowly discharge all this container and fuel and everything else. And again, we don't know how long this will take, but the CSL Indian Ocean, it took 6 days and 12 tugs, and they didn't have these massive crack problems that could, again, we don't have there's no pollution now, so we don't think it's cracked now. But as that tide goes down and that ship's still stuck on there, that's when those enormous stresses could crack the ship and really, really create a massive problem that takes days or weeks to fix. All right, I am Captain John Conrad, founder and CEO of gcaptain.com. I hope this explains a little bit about what is happening in Egypt and the Suez. Have a great evening, and we will be updating you with more information as we get it on gcaptain.com. Have a great evening.